Coyfish Chronicles, Nat.com. Online Romance with a Casanova Catfish Scammer by Amy Coy.
Hello, it's the Coyfish Chronicles. This is Amy Coy, and I wanted to discuss a little bit about what's happening in this journey to catch a catfish. As many of you know at this point, if you've gone back through the other chronicles, you'll realize back in the end of November, first part of December, I was out on Match.com and finally thought I'd met the man of my dreams there in December, and we continued and started to pursue a relationship with plans of getting together shortly. Of course, I didn't realize that not only was he not within 60 miles of me, which is where I thought he lived, but he was out of the country. He was actually in Malaysia finishing up an assignment. Yep, he was working there, finishing up a job, and would be coming back to the States within a couple of weeks or so, once he finished up the project. Of course, I didn't realize when I first started talking to him that he may never finish the project. So here we are in August, and unfortunately, before I realized what all had happened, I fell into a relationship with this gentleman, and we've been conversing, writing, calling, and talking pretty regularly for the last 8 months. The first 3 months were pretty intense. We probably talked 4 to 6 hours every day, or emailed, or texted, or instant message, and really communicated quite a bit. And then when the crisis hit, which was at the end of February, he had missed his flight. Of course, by then he already had my life savings, and he was going to be coming to the States, moving to this area, so we could pursue a relationship, and he was going to be paying me back the money he borrowed me, my life savings. But that fell apart at the end of February, and by March, we had the disappearing Flight 370 from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, China, happened to be the very same plane he would have been coming in on just that previous week. So the spell was broken, the juju spell, and suddenly I realized I had been scammed, and decided instead of just dropping it, that maybe I would try to see if there's anything I could do to help other people, maybe to not do the same thing I had done, to maybe share my experience and maybe prevent them from having a similar experience. So I've had quite an adventure these last few months in my attempts to try to notify authorities, because unfortunately in my case, I was so generous and so kind. I sent money wherever my catfish love scammer asked me to send it. I'm going to call him Dwayne Hodges. That's what he calls himself. He says he's from the United Kingdom and the United States, dual citizen. Yeah, I don't believe that anymore. And if he is a dual citizen, it's probably Nigeria and Malaysia, if I'm lucky. Anyway, I have made so many discoveries these last few months, and I'm going to be sharing those in the Chronicles. But in summary, what has happened is I've got him back on the hook. I really decided if I could just get him back on the hook for a few months, that maybe I could get this story out to someone that could help me, whether it be in the press, like contacting Dr. Phil, thinking this might just be the perfect show, because he's done so many great shows on discovering that people have been catfished and scammed, but never a show on what to do after you've discovered you've been scammed. Once you've lost your life savings, what can be done? So that's what I'd like to do, is take this story to the next level. I know I've been scammed. I know that Dwayne Hodges is not his real name. I know that he stole someone's identity, a guy named Steve Borowski, who lives in Southern California, who I've made contact with and shared a few of the pictures that Dwayne sent me as his own, and did discover that Dwayne had stolen the pictures from Steve Borowski. Now, I don't think he even knows it's Steve Borowski, because he could go back and find a whole lot more pictures than he sent me. So I'm thinking he just has a little collection of pictures, and that's all he's been able to send me. But I did make contact with Steve Borowski to let him know that, first off, that someone had stolen his identity and was using it to scam women. And second, if there's anything he might want to do to get involved with the story so he could help with people that have had their identities stolen. And then third, telling him that I would be notifying authorities, and of course I'd have to let them know that the pictures that I've been sent were not actually Dwayne Hodges. They were Steve Borowski. So there is a stolen identity there, and of course now my identity will be stolen as well because I've sent them probably a dozen plus pictures. So now not only has Steve Borowski gotten his picture stolen, mine are very likely now stolen and being used to reel in some nice man into another love scam. This has just got to stop. Now, I've also notified a few other members of the press. I've sent stories to some of the ABC programs, have not heard back from them. 2020 Nightline, ABC with Diane Sawyer, a few of the programs that I thought might really enjoy this kind of situation. I've also made contact with a news source called Reuters, Thomas Reuters, which is an international group, and they did run a story, and I did send information to them, hoping that that would be another way to try to get some attention in Malaysia, because this is actually an international crime. Unfortunately, if it happened around the corner, I could actually get help from the local police, maybe our attorney general. I could actually get an attorney. I could actually do something to help myself. But because this was an international crime and it crosses borders beyond the United States, I'm having very little luck getting any help. So, for instance, my catfish love scammer, the Casanova, Dwayne Hodges, very likely committed the crimes and began the initial communications with me while he was in Malaysia. Now, it's possible that he's involved with a Nigerian group, a scammer group, a syndicate. And the reason I say that is when I sent money to Malaysia, at the time I sent money to Malaysia back in February and March, actually January and March, there was an IP ping on one of his email addresses that showed up in Selangor in a small part of town, which is just right outside of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And that's also the same general area where the account holder for the bank account where I sent the money, wired the money, and not too far from the CIMB bank where the money went through. So there's a good chance that that probably is some truth. I mean, there are some facts there to back up that part of the story. Now, at the time he was using, at one point, a Malaysian phone. He also had a California phone. He said that when he lived in California, that was the phone he used, and that's the one he tends to use the most, the one that I've been able to use to call him, and the one we use for texting. We continue to do that till today, which is in August. Then, back in, after everything fell through at the end of February and March, we started kind of drifting apart until he thought there was more money on the line. So I kind of made up a story to make him think I had some more money that could be coming his way. And suddenly I became very important again, probably sometime in April and May, because he kind of dropped me, sort of. I wasn't as important anymore because they'd gotten my life savings. Now, in the middle of May, something changed. His IP address shifted its time zone from +8, which would indicate Malaysia, to a +1. That very likely is very possibly Nigeria. Now, the reason I say Nigeria is a great possibility is within that same day or two, the next time I got a phone call from him, when he didn't do *67, which hides the phone number, it makes it list as unavailable or restricted. So around the same time in mid-May, on one of his phone calls, it had an area code or country code 234. Just so happens that would be Nigeria. That's in Africa. So when we got to May, he more than likely, whether it's summer break, like the college kids head back from wherever they are for school, they head back for their summer break, or whether he's moved back to that area or somewhere in +1 IP zone. But his schedule, his time of calling me, our communicating schedule, certainly shifted about that time. In the time since then, there have been like 3 or 4 other calls that have also indicated it's likely he's coming out of a 234 area, which again is Nigeria. Now, one time I did ask him why the phone showed up as a 234, because that would be a Nigerian number. And he had a quick explanation, and that was international calling cards can be from anywhere. Just so happens that one he must have used that day was from Nigeria. Right. So anyway, I'm right now suspecting he very likely could be in Nigeria. Now, another reason I'm suspecting that there's a good chance he's Nigerian or connected to Nigeria is that I got a butt call about a month ago, back in the middle of July. Now, he didn't know he had butt called me, and I was recording it. After 5 minutes, I suddenly snapped to and said, oh my God, I need to record this. And so I recorded it, and about 11 minutes worth of recording, which I condensed down to about 5 minutes, and tried to pop the noise out and condense it down to just 5 minutes so it'd be easier in MP3 form, hopefully small enough to mail out and so I could get some help interpreting it. But it was very obviously not English, and I suspected it was probably some kind of African language. And since then, did find a professor the first week in August in a local university who happens to be from Ghana. And he was able to at least tell me that he suspected that they were speaking either Pidgin English, Igbo, or Igdu, which were Idu and Igbo, which are languages that would be spoken in Nigeria. I have a meeting next week, which will be the third week of August, hopefully with a Nigerian professor, and maybe I'll be able to get to the bottom of the translation on this butt call, because it really is very interesting that I actually have him talking in a different language when he says he only talks in English. So that's kind of nice. Hopefully I'll get some information from that. Now, he also butt called me back in February once when he was in a club, and I had about 2 minutes of some very interesting music. And the same professor said he was pretty sure that was not something you'd ever hear in Africa. It sounded more Middle Eastern, probably Malaysian, and most definitely Islamic or Muslim type music. Now, this is not making me feel too good since he's telling me he's Protestant and he's a dual citizen from the UK and from the United States. And he's planning to come here so he and I can start a relationship. So you can see where I may be developing a lot of suspicions. Not too sure I'm going to want a relationship with this guy. But unfortunately, I've wired away my life savings. And I'm hoping there's some way with enough time, if I can just keep him on the line long enough, maybe I can pull off a sting. I've reported it to some of the embassies, some of the police departments, IC3, which is White Collar Crimes Division of the FBI. I've tried very desperately to try to get the information out and try to get people notified. Interpol, of course, the local FBI is of no help. Of course, the police can't help me because it's an international crime. And it's an international crime because, you guessed it, he was in Malaysia more than likely when the crime was committed. He very likely now is in Nigeria. Now, guess where I sent the money? Certainly not all in the United States. He had a friend who he said his fiance was in Alabama, and he would be able to wire him some of the money because he didn't have an account in Malaysia. So I did, luckily, wire a small amount to an account holder in Alabama. That was the first 2 wires. And then I wired another wire to Malaysia. And then the next 6 wires I wired to, you'll never believe it, Shanghai, China, to the Bank of Communications, their offshore unit. That's probably not a good place to send money, not if you want to ever find it again. So I sent money through China to Mr. Dwayne Hodges, a company named Waya International Co. Limited. Went online trying to locate him recently. Not looking good. I'm not finding too much about him. And then the last wire was wired back to Malaysia, another one of the CIMB banks and a different account holder. So it was a total of 10 wires, over $250,000. My life savings gone just like that. Why? Because I think I was under a juju spell. I think he had me totally convinced that we had a real relationship. We were developing a true, committed love relationship, and he was going to be coming here, and we were going to start a life together. He was retiring, And he painted a really wonderful, beautiful life that we would be sharing together. And I took it, hook, line, and sinker. See, he's a catfish, a Casanova love scammer. He's a romance scammer. I never heard of that before. When I joined Match.com, I thought I was just going to meet nice people. I had no idea I needed to be aware of this kind of crime being committed. It just never occurred to me. I had no point of reference for it. So obviously, if you aren't expecting it, you're not suspecting it, you're probably a little more naive and vulnerable and can get yourself into some things that you probably shouldn't. Too bad Match doesn't do IP address checks. Too bad Match doesn't do Google image searches. They go a long way in helping people like me not lose our life savings. And I'm sure I'm one of thousands. So I would really like to get the word out that there are scammers out there. They're horrible, evil scammers. Now, are they funding their own luxurious lifestyle? Maybe. Or is there something more sinister behind what they do with the money? Like, are they funding terrorist organizations in the Middle East or in Africa? Possibly. Are they just funding terrorist activities, supporting other drugs or abuse of children and women, kidnapping women, sex slaves? I don't know. I don't know what else they're doing with the money. He acts like he's broke again, and I'm the one that's actually broke because I gave him all my money. I loaned it to him, of course. He did sign a promissory note, so not that I'll ever get my money back, but at least I can write off my taxes till the day I die. Maybe I can will it to somebody that can take it and continue writing something off until they die, and maybe their heirs can keep writing things off, because unless I can find a way to help get this story out, unless I can find a way to work with the banks, unless there's something I don't know about related to fraud and scamming, I'm just out my life savings, and I'll be working till the day I die. But that was my decision. I made a bad decision. I made a poor decision. I was very likely under something called a juju spell. I've since learned from the professors at the university from Africa that from the people he's talked to, and they've talked to some of the scammer types right there in the cyber cafes in Ghana, and so in the west part of Africa, it's something called juju. It's a very common practice. It's a spiritualist kind of practice. It's kind of like voodoo. They put their victims under a spell, and they can make their victims do whatever they want them to do. And by gosh, I'm pretty much a believer, because anybody that knows me, my family and friends, would know I would never fall this way for somebody that couldn't offer me more than he did, just a phone romance, internet romance. I would never send my money away like that. I worked way too hard to save it for my retirement. I would never do that. So I tend to believe, whether it was brainwashing, mind control, a juju spell, whatever, there was some reason I was so willing to give everything I had as fast as I could to this man calling himself Dwayne Hodges. So the story is called the Coyfish Chronicles, hoping to help other people become more coy and not be taken in by these catfish. Because this is a story about an online romance with a Casanova catfish scammer. Stay tuned. I will continue to share more of the saga as it develops. And if the Lord be willing, maybe one day I can be part of a sting and at least end the criminal activity of one scamming syndicate. Signing off, this is Amy Coy.